right, welcome back. This is our third episode of the Fantasy Football Expo live, and we are joined with Marcas Grant from NFL Plus today. Myself, I'm Nathan Cheatham. I'm here with Bob Long, and we're here to talk about the Fantasy Football Expo as well as answer any questions that are out there that people might have, getting prepared for coming in August, or getting your ticket, or what's the best place to stay at. Which I hear that the Expo Hotel, the DoubleTree, is booked up. So um, you know there are some other options out there we could talk about, but I want to make sure really introduce Marcas Grant here. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much. If you're not, be sure to follow him at Marcas Grant, Marcus G on Twitter. But hey, Marcus, thanks for coming to the show.
My parents spelled it differently. I'm doomed to a lifetime of misspelled mail. But thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. Bob, it's always good to connect with you. And Nate, nice to meet you as well. So I'm glad to be here.
Yes. And I am fixing that lower third as we speak here.
All good. Look at that. On the fly editing.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes. Good deal. No, Marcus, thank you for being a part of this. You've been a big part of this since the beginning, since the first Kings Classic. I know you would have went to the actual 2019 Expo, but you have to fly back to California because you work for NFL, and that's a big deal, and you needed to get back. And but that's where it all started. But one thing I don't know I've ever heard, and maybe I just have missed this, but talk about your fantasy football beginnings, Marcus. When did you start playing? Who pulled you in? And how did that then, take you to NFL.com?
So my first fantasy league, I was a freshman in college. This was way back in the late 1900s.
Yes,
when I was going to college, I was a freshman. I was working at the student radio station as part of the sports staff, and one of the guys who was a senior said, he was putting together a fantasy league. He said, we've got one spot left. And so me and actually two friends, so it was like three of us, we decided to share. We decided to go in. None of us had played fantasy football, but we're like, we know football. Like, how hard can this be?
Yeah.
So our first pick, I remember our first pick was Dan Marino, which at the time, draft strategy wasn't like there wasn't real science or anything behind it. We were just like, Dan Marino's really good and he throws for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. Like, let's draft him. So that was our first pick. I remember, I don't even know if we made the playoffs. Like, I don't think we did very well particularly. And I say this, like, when I tell this story to like all the kids now, I always preface it by saying I'm going to use a lot of old timey words like telephone and answering machine and newspaper, because like at the time,
right,
we would have to, and you probably remember this, Bob, you might have been playing at this time. Like, we would actually have to get on the phone and call in our lineup to the commissioner. Like, we would leave it on his answering machine. Like, at quarterback, we're starting Marino. At running back, this guy. Wide receiver, this guy.
Yep.
If you woke up on Sunday morning and one of your guys was a scratch, then you're scrambling. You got to call him back. And you like take this guy out of the lineup and put this guy in. We didn't know who our opponent was starting at any point. Really, we could kind of make an educated guess based on rosters. But then like on, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, we would go get the LA Times and we'd scour the box scores and like try to hand calculate our scores. Because the other part of this for us was, I was a freshman. I lived on campus. Our commissioner was a senior who lived off campus. And so like, he might not get us updated scores and standings right away. Like, he maybe he would fax some in to like the student newspaper, because like half the league, wrote for the student paper, the other half were for the student radio station. So maybe he'd fax them in to somebody, or a lot of times he would call me, and it was almost like a drug deal. Like, he would call me in my dorm and he's like, hey, I'm out front with the stats, right? And like I would like run down, and like he'd be parked out front. Yeah, basically like he would roll down the window of his car, like he'd hand me the sheet of paper. Right, he'd hand like a packet, and I grab it and I run back in my dorm room and like go see what we were up to. So like, yeah, you had to really be determined at the time to play. but yeah, 1994 was my first introduction to fantasy football.
Yeah, back in the late 1900s. I love
Yeah.
using that phrase now. It's such a good one. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
talk about when did you get into the writing part, the journalism part? How did that path to NFL.com come to play?
Yeah, so I left college. I knew I wanted to do sports. I wanted to actually do like play by play for some kind of sport. I actually did a couple of seasons of minor league baseball. After
Okay.
that, I just worked in radio, sports radio, generally kind of small stations up and down California and what have you. Was lucky enough to get a job at what was then Sporting News Radio. Their national network was based in LA. I was doing like updates every 20 minutes, producing radio shows, what have you. But after about a year and a half or two, uh, that job kind of evaporated. The company moved its operations to Houston, so a lot of us were just sort of left looking for work. And at the time, one of the guys I worked with was doing some part-time stuff with NFL media. He suggested to me just to apply over there because, especially seasonally, they're always looking for people. So, um, now mind you, the backdrop to this is that it was 2011 and there was a lockout underway. And
Mm,
there were real questions as to whether or not they were going to play a season that year. But
yeah.
I was unemployed. I was sitting on my couch, freelance writing, and watching old episodes of Law and Order SVU. And I took my buddy's advice, and so I literally went to like NFL.com/careers or jobs or whatever the website was. Applied for 5 or 6 things, a lot of which I was not actually qualified for, but I was like, I just need a job. Had kind
Right.
of forgotten about it because of the lockout. Everything was sort of happening. Um, a few months passed, and out of the blue, I get a phone call from Michael Fabiano,
Mm,
asking me if I wanted to write about fantasy football. And I was like, "Does it pay?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Sure."
yeah.
So I went in, did the interview. And then I remember like a week or two after the interview, turning on ESPN in the morning, hearing that the lockout was over, right? The owners and the players have come to an agreement. We're going to play football this year. So maybe a couple hours after seeing that report, I get a call saying the job is yours. So that was 2011. I started as a seasonal employee. I would work from like August to March. They would send me out into the wilderness after that for a few months. I was kind of a glorified copy editor. I would read stuff that the other folks wrote. I would write maybe a couple of blog posts here and there. They would let me occasionally do a cameo on our podcast, and stuff like that. And then after a couple of seasons, was lucky to be hired full time. Have just sort of grown, and coming up in August, it will be what my fourth. Wait, Sony. So yeah, my 14th year, my 15th season coming up
Wow, that's
this
awesome.
August. Yeah,
Congrats. That's
thanks.
awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
Good stuff. No, that's great. I just never guess I probably missed it. I'm sure you said the whole story on our girl Kate, Casey Kasem's podcast, and I probably
Probably
just
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
sure you did because that's where those always happen. So good stuff. But talk about that first trip to Canton, 2018 Kings Classic. How you found out, how you got there, your thoughts on that first year. What your thoughts were then after that first year. Like, okay, this was fun, but what's going to happen now?
Yeah. So I remember getting the call from Brad Evans asking me if I wanted to be in an experts league. And at the time, I was kind of like, I don't know. Like I'm on this perpetual quest to like narrow down the number of leagues that I'm in. And like I always fail, right? Like
Yeah,
I always tell one or two people like, "Hey, I can't do it this year." And then inevitably I get a call from somebody that's like, "Hey, can you fill a spot for me?" I'm like, "All right, fine." So then the number ends up staying the same. So Brad calls and asks if I want to be a part of an experts league. And I was kind of like, I don't know, Brad. Like I'm just really trying to cut back on leagues. And he's like, "Hey, we're gonna do our draft in the Hall of Fame." I was like, "Oh, yeah, man. Like, where do I sign up? Like, how do how do I be a part of this?" Um, Because at the time I had never been to the Pro Football Hall of
Right.
Fame,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, well, this is my chance to go and check it out and see it. So I booked my ticket that first year and caught a red eye out of LA to fly into Cleveland and drove the hour to Canton and got to meet see, like I knew Brad, I knew a couple of the guys there, but meet a whole lot of folks that I either didn't know about or had only known, through the internet. And just was really fun to just sort of connect with people on that level and do a draft. And I will really never ever forget finishing that draft that first year, and we all sort of looked at each other and we're like, well, all right, it's what is it, 5 o'clock? um what do we do now? And somebody was just like, there's a B-dubs. And we're like,
Yeah.
all right, that's good enough.
Yeah.
We
That's
went
where
to
we went.
B-dubs
Yeah.
and we had wings and beer until they pretty much kicked us out. And it was a good time. And so I was sad because you mentioned like 2018, 2019, I had a lot of things to do with the NFL. We were sort of transitioning staff, and so I had picked up extra responsibilities. So like I was always, I'd do the draft, we'd go out, and then like first thing in the morning, I'm out. I think I'd leave the hotel in Canton at like 4 a.m. and to drive back to Cleveland to get on a flight back to LA. But after that first year, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely doing this again. I'm definitely coming back. And I remember that second year, I think that was like the expo was just beginning.
Yeah. It was the
And
first year.
I feel like the expo itself almost was the B dubs, right? Because I remember going to B dubs that second year, and there were a whole lot of other people, like just like either fans or brand new content creators, but there were just a lot more people than just us jerks who were drafting
Yeah.
all
We had
day
like
long.
70 people in there. We took over the whole place.
Yeah, it's honest. So that's a funny story. That is how I first met the Majukes, Kate and Michelle. We still to this day sort of laugh about it. That they knew who I was. They came up and introduced themselves to me by Michelle taking my beer out of my hand and replacing it with a Moscow Mule. Like that was their introduction to me. But it was great. I mean, we had a great conversation. We had a whole lot of fun. And so like I've just been really excited to see this thing really take off, right? I mean, to see it be from what it was like, again, a bunch of nerds at a Buffalo Wild Wings to like
Right.
now it has kind of become, I think I'll say this, Bob, there are two, I think, major summer events for fantasy football. One is the Scott Fish Bowl, like when the draft for Scott Fish Bowl kicks off. And I think the Expo has become the other. Those are the two, I think, big off-season signposts, if you will, of the fantasy season now.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And that's, again, people always ask me, are like, well, when was your first year? Was it 2021? I said, no, it was actually 2019. And they're like, oh, I didn't know you had one then. I go, well, you're not alone. we only had like 75 people attend that. And then 2020 came and the whole COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
And 2021, I think you didn't come in because you were still kind of concerned and
because what 2020 it didn't happen at all, right? Like it was done.
Right.
Yeah, so then 2021, because my son was still very young, and so just out of caution, I just decided
Totally
to not come. I did, I still did the draft. I did it remotely, obviously, but I did not come in 2021, and then 2022 was, I think, the first year I went to the expo. And even then, like I had to get back, so it was brief, but I made it a point to at least make a sweep around. I just wanted to at least take a lap and see what it was about. And every year, just kind of watching this thing. I mean, dude, you've had Des Bryant playing flag football. You know what I'm saying? Like
that still will be the highlight until further notice.
Right. Like it was like amazing, like to sit there and just like watch Des, and like
playing quarterback.
Like I think everybody had the same thought at the same time, like, wow, Des is left-handed. Like I think that was like exactly. We're like, Des is left-handed. Wow. But yeah, I mean, it's been so cool to see this thing take off.
Cool.
Yeah, that 2019 Expo, that was actually wasn't the Midwest?
It was called the Midwest Fantasy Football Expo because I did that because Tony Romo had his National Fantasy Football Convention in Dallas. And I'm like, well, I can't just call it the National because now I'm stealing it, not stealing it, but I was like, okay, I'll just call it the Midwest and we'll see how it goes. But then by the time we got back to 2021, Romo's thing was done. There was no really thing. So I'm like, okay, we'll just take the Midwest part out and just call it the Fantasy Football Expo and see what happens. And, now it's become, a big national, 800 people show up, hopefully 1,000 this year. And, we will continue to grow and keep making it bigger and better. And, because a lot of these folks want us and, focus on the fans because of Marcus and Bob and Harris and Howard Bender and Fabian. Maybe we'll get Fabiano back this year if he doesn't hurt himself again.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned Tony Romo, and I know he's doing his thing and it's growing in Dallas. Do you remember when he was going to do one in Vegas? It's been about 10 years now. He was going to do
and the NFL stopped him or something, right?
Yes. So it's sort of funny thing about that is we knew it was happening, and those of us working in the fantasy department, the NFL, we had actually planned to go out to Vegas because not only was it Romo, but he had like stars. I mean, I think Dez was coming. I think Gronk was coming. I mean, like you could go down the list, and I mean, it was just a ton of big time stars that were going to show up to this convention. So we figured, well, all right, as the NFL, we're going to show up there. As NFL media, we can get some content. We can maybe grab some players for interviews, do a whole big thing. And then when the league office cracked down on it, there were coworkers I had who actually had to take depositions with lawyers over this thing because the league threatened to sue. The league threatened to sue Tony Romo. They were threatening to suspend players if they were involved in this thing
because it was Vegas and it was gambling.
Because it was Vegas, and I think there was a casino that was sponsoring the whole thing, and just because of the whole connotation of it, the league came down really, really hard. And so I had friends and coworkers who had to sit down and talk to lawyers about what they knew, what our plans were, and we were just like, our plans are nothing sinister. We just hey. We don't have a lot of chances to go talk to Gronk, right? Like Gronk's not coming on our fantasy show, but if we can go to Gronk and talk to him or talk to Romo, like that's what we're gonna do. But I remember that was a big deal because we were all set and planned to go to Vegas. I think we're gonna leave fly out on like Friday morning, and I remember getting a call from one of our producers on Thursday night, just saying like, "Hey, everything's off. The league is shutting it down. I got to talk to a lawyer tomorrow." It was like a whole big deal.
And the funny thing is, it has to do with probably gambling, and now they're throwing live betting lines during the game on TV. So
there's a whole team that plays its home games in Vegas now. Like, what are we doing?
Exactly.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I wanted to take a brief moment to give a shout out to some in the chat. We've got Jorge Edwards. He mentions always fun chopping it up with you. And then Tootsie Pop, she remarked on the Kate and Michelle name drop there. For anyone watching, be sure to drop your questions about the Fantasy Football Expo, the event, how to get tickets. Be sure to go to thefantasyfootballexpo.com and purchase get the fan experience package. Get the ultimate fan. You're going to get a chance to meet Marcas Grant there in Canton during the Meet the Experts event. But let's talk a little bit about that. That's new. Bob, you want to share a little bit about the change that we've got this year, what we're doing special?
Yeah, so last year, well, we've done this a couple years now where we always send out a survey after the event, what people's expectations, what they'd like to see improved, what they'd like to do better. And there was a number of people who mentioned that while it's exciting to see Marcas Grant, Bob Harris, Howard Bender, Fabiano, whoever there, that they felt uncomfortable because those guys are always surrounded by a lot of people who are talking to them at the parties. And we all know all of these guys, Marcus and everybody, are all super nice. So we'll talk to you at any time. But I get it. You don't want to be rude and, jump in front. So a lot of people asked for more of a special meet and greet, not one-on-one exactly, but, a more intimate scenario of being able to talk to them, ask questions, pick their brains about fantasy football or life in general, whatever the case may be. So we created the Ultimate Fan Package, which includes a meet and greet with Marcus, Bob Harris, Howard Bender, hopefully Jeff Manns, Jeff Ratcliffe, all these people, Andy Behrens, Dave Richards, etc. To do that. And then in addition to that, there's also, you get, of course, the ultimate or the VIP weekend package. You get into every event. There are special T-shirts for the folks that are the ultimate fans. You also get registered to be a part of the Fans Classic, which I'll transition to in a second. Merchandise discounts, Discord stuff, just all kinds of stuff. Oh, a guided tour of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not just a ticket, an actual guided tour of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So all that stuff's included in this package. So check that out on the website. But Marcus, let's talk about the Fans Classic. I've kind of described this to you guys. It took a while to ever kind of understand where I was coming from. But one of the other things people, I won't say complained about, but it's like, wow, it would be cool if we fans could be drafting live in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I'm like, that's a good idea. We don't have a Fans Classic, and we should have one. So we've created the Fans Classic for this year. It's kind of a two-part thing this year. So there's a qualifier for those who, again, buy the ultimate packages, whether it's silver, bronze, or gold, and you get an complimentary entry into the Fans Classic, and you will pick who you're representing. It could be Marcas Grant, Howard Bender, Bob Harris, whoever's in the list. And then you will compete in a Scott Fishbowl type, slow draft. And there will be, 14-team leagues with the same setup, Marcus, as we have for Kings Classic. And then the ultimate will go then to like a playoff, which will scale down to 12 to 14 winners who will then come back in 2026 to draft live in the Pro Football Hall of Fame right beside us in the hall. But we wanted to have our first actual Fans Classic this year. So what we're doing is we're asking all of the guys, Marcus, Howard, Bob Harris, etc., to pick their favorite fan to represent them in the first ever Fans Classic, drafting live at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, right beside us in the Nash Center at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And then the winner of that will gets an all-expense paid trip to the Expo in 2026, hotel, airfare, the whole thing. And then you will get to draft right beside, sit right beside your favorite expert, whether that's Marcus, whether that's Bob, whoever that is. And you'll be able to sit there while they're doing their draft in 2026. So that's what's happening. Marcus, you're going to get to pick your favorite fan. How you do it, there's discussions and rumors that Howard Bender is doing a what is it, lookalike contest? Lookalike contest of Howard Bender. Marcus, you can do whatever you want. Videos, whatever. I think Howard is also asking for donuts. I'm not sure. But any ideas yet? How you're going to do that? We need it by June 1st, so you've got some time. But
I don't know, that donut idea sounds good. I mean, like I'm open to bribery. Like, I just put that out there. you know, like you want to DoorDash me some food or like a case of beer. Like I'm open to that sort of thing. I don't know. I think it may just be like a short video. Just make your case. Somebody be creative, something like that. I don't know. I have not settled on a method to choose just yet. But I'll figure it out. I'll let you guys know when I know. Bob, you will be the second to know. So.
Okay. But I'm sure that you probably have some people who send you a lot of DMs, hit you up on Twitter a lot, telling you how much they love this show and ask this question. And, so I got to believe there's at least some folks out there that you kind of have some ideas on, right?
Oh, I think so. Right. And I'll say this, and this is at least for me. And I would guess this probably is true for a lot of us in this industry who get a lot of questions. I think the people that we remember more, that stick with us more, are the people who, don't just use us as advice ATMs. Like the people who just sort of, who actually just interact with us as people. So, right, like, a lot of, especially in the off season, I don't don't post as much about football. I will if there's a big story or something like that. But like on the day to day, like, you know, I don't know. Like I don't necessarily care about, you know, what Joe Flacco to the Browns means. Like I can't muster up enough energy to give you a strong take on it like right away. You know, but if I'm posting about a movie or a TV show and like you just interact with me on that level, I'm definitely a lot more likely to, you know, to help you out, to answer your question when it comes to fantasy, as opposed to like, you know, you all know this. We all have the people who just show up in like August that we haven't heard from all year, and suddenly it's like, hey, who do I take with my second round pick? And I'm like, I don't know.
Oh no.
I don't know, like AJ Brown, sure, like why not? You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. So I think that's a big step. Is like, you know, we're people too, and we have opinions on things that aren't just fantasy football. Like, you know, respect our ability to talk about other things.
Yeah,
I'm sure
absolutely.
you enjoy the people. I always enjoy the people who tell me they won their championship
Yes.
and they feel like, you helped them with some great picks or some great fab choices or waiver wire pickups or whatever the case may be. Those are the ones I always remember because I always feel like that's a majority of why I started the whole consistency model in the first place, was giving something people a new tool. And when they go, man, I got your book, and last year I didn't make the playoffs, and this year I won the whole league, and I'm like, okay, cool, I love that. So
Yeah, no, it's great too. And it's funny because when I first started doing this job, I used to take it really personally when I got something wrong.
Sure.
You know, in part because, I mean, as human beings, you just don't want to be wrong, but also because you knew that people were reading and watching and listening. And so I felt bad that maybe I steered them in a wrong direction. As I've, you know, matured and grown in this industry, like I still don't want to get things wrong, but I think I've accepted the fact that predicting the future is hard. It's hard, you know, and like
Kidding.
you're going to get things wrong because that's just the nature of the job. So, you know,
Mhm.
I'm still not thrilled about it, but I definitely don't take it as hard as I think I used to when I first started doing this.
Yeah. So I got a question, and we kind of asked this one of Howard as well in the last episode. But so speaking of like how we're really focusing on the fans this year, and we've got this fan meet and greet. But if somebody sees you at the expo at one of the parties, what would be like a really good opening question of like a non-football question that you would topic that you would want to talk about to someone, like first time meeting them at the at one of the parties at the expo?
What is your Waffle House order?
Oh,
Ooh,
I
okay.
like
Right?
that.
Because like for me, because we don't have Waffle House in
Mhm.
California. Like
Mm,
from where I live in Los Angeles, the closest one is like Phoenix, which is like a 6 hour
wow.
drive. Like, and you know, people that I've talked to that I've met along the way, there are a lot of people at the expo who know, because I've said that I have kind of an unhealthy fascination with Waffle House. So whenever I'm in an area that has one, like it's an automatic thing. So like for me, part of my expo tradition has been take a red eye out of LA, you know, land in Cleveland, rent a car, drive, and before I even get to the hotel, the first thing I do is go to Waffle House.
Mhm.
Waffle
I sit down. And here's the thing: I know it's not great, right? I know the food isn't
Right.
great. Like it's not fine dining. It's the whole experience of it. You know, it's the whole, you know, just going to Waffle House and sitting at the counter and getting a waffle and some hash browns and a cup of coffee and just experiencing everything that Waffle House has to offer. You know, like I get it. It's a different experience, you know, say after midnight than it is in the middle of the day. But either
3
way,
a.m.
I enjoy the Waffle House. So if you just want to come over and talk to me about Waffle House, like I will oblige you all day long.
That's
Love it.
amazing. I actually went to Waffle House for the first time. It was last year. I was in Kentucky. Did not get waffles. Did not get waffles, but it
Really?
was
You don't
it was
have to get
I mean, you don't
it's
have
definitely
to.
interesting. Yeah. Um,
I
but
mean, look, like waffle, like they're, I mean, they're probably more known for their hash browns than their waffles. Just like, you know, Dunkin's probably more known for its coffee than its actual donuts. So, like, you know, it makes sense.
yeah,
right.
absolutely. But so, talking about food, I think a good transition here is to talk about Bob just told me about this thing, before we got on the cookout group.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about the Canton cookout group and how that all got started.
Yeah, well, it actually got started at the expo a few years ago. I believe it was 2022 or 23. I
Yep.
don't recall
22.
which, but 22. Um, Chris Allen, who does a lot of amazing work, works at Fantasy Life among other places. Um, Came up to me and a couple other people and just said, "Hey, like I've got this idea. I want to get, you know, there are more and more minority content creators in this space." And he's like,
Mhm.
"I want to do something that we can all sort of, pool our resources. We can get together. We can kind of help each other with mentoring, finding jobs, just something where we can have our own sort of, peer group." And sort of continue to expand and grow and integrate within the larger fantasy community. um, and he pulled me and a couple other people aside and asked if we'd be interested in it. And I said, absolutely. And so,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it was a thing that started at the expo. Like people that we all, a lot of us sort of knew each other again, like via the internet, via social media. And we've kind of grown it. And over the last few years, it really has grown and developed into something really, really big and really nice. And
Mhm.
we're definitely grateful to folks like Bob who give us a space and an opportunity to sort of go out and outreach and recruit, but also getting to know folks with other parts of the industry, right? Like with Andy Behrens and the FSGA,
Mhm.
getting into some of these other larger companies, right? Like making contacts, working at the NFL, being able to make contacts there, whether it's Yahoo or some of the other big companies.
Right.
Um, having folks like Matthew Berry and Elliot Christ at Fantasy Life really support and sort of try to outreach. It's been amazing. It's been wonderful. And I think we've seen a lot of growth in terms of the diversity within excuse me, within the
Mhm.
industry. I think it's interesting because I think the pandemic, for better or worse, did a lot for the explosion of the fantasy content space.
Mhm.
I think it was growing, but then when we all got stuck inside for months,
Years.
people, yeah, right. I mean, years, like, like, unfortunately, a lot of folks, either were underemployed or unemployed because of it, but that also gave a lot of people space to say, you know what, I'm gonna get myself a decent microphone off Amazon. I'm gonna use my internet connection and I'm gonna start a podcast. And so I think
Right.
that went a long way toward helping sort of expand the industry, sort of diversify voices. But it's been sort of nice for a lot of us to kind of connect with people, um, and just like bounce ideas off of other folks because I'm still learning too. Like I'm still learning a lot of things within this industry. I've been
Right.
doing it for a while, but there are so many things that I don't know how to do. And so being able to kind of connect with a group like this it's been fulfilling for me as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, man. I mean, honestly, this is all Chris Allen's brainchild, and he's really been the driving force behind it. But it was another thing though that came out of the Fantasy Football Expo. Just us
Wh
kind of sitting
So
around
do
at the
you
hotel
remember
bar.
do you remember though kind of how it started and then Chris turned it into that was the first I know I think it was the 2021, maybe it was the 22, but
Mhm,
there was a young gentleman who posted on Twitter that he felt like and he was a young black male that he felt like he didn't fit in and
mhm.
people were, not that they weren't nice. He just didn't feel like he fit in.
Yeah,
And I remember, I got a hold of you, I got a hold of Chris, Jorge, Mauricio, and you guys within 30 minutes found the guy, talked to him, and then he posted out how awesome everybody was and how everybody came to, make him feel welcome. And you guys were just amazing at doing that. And then I think Chris and you and others then kind of said, well, maybe we need to do something more to make people feel welcome every year. And I think
yeah,
that's where the cookout group came about. But yeah, you guys were amazing. I remember I was just crushed because I'm like,
yeah.
no, 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 this can't happen. We are not those people, please. And
No,
then, you guys were just boom on it. You found him, you talked to him, and then he was very appreciative and posted a really nice post on Twitter after that saying how great you guys were and how it became a welcoming thing. And never had an issue since.
Yeah, it's funny because like now that you say that, I do remember that. I hadn't thought about that in a
Yeah.
long time, and so you're absolutely right. That was sort of the genesis of the whole thing. And it's funny
Mhm.
because I never really thought about it just because by the time the expo came, I've been fortunate to be in this job for a while
Mhm.
and have reached the
Yeah.
point that people kind of know who I am a little bit. So
Sure.
when I go to the expo, I never had a problem because I was connecting with friends I already had. I was
Right.
making new
Sure.
friends and that sort of thing. But it was sort of kind of eye opening because obviously not everybody has that experience, and so
Right.
um, to be able to kind of welcome somebody in and because I think generally speaking, the fantasy community has been very welcoming, very very generous and very kind. I mean, you know, like everything, you'll always have interpersonal conflicts with a couple of people. But I think on the whole, I
Mhm.
think this has been a wonderful, wonderful experience, both personally and professionally for me. And so, I think part of it for the cookout when Chris first asked me, because I remember when I first got in this industry, I remember going to a conference. It was still FSTA. They hadn't
Right.
changed. Yeah, there's still
Right.
FST. I think I went to a conference in Chicago in like 2013, and I think the only black people there were me and like Corey Parsons. Like I think that
I
was it,
believe that.
right?
Yeah.
And that was it. And so like I remember telling Chris when he asked me if to be a part of this, I was like, absolutely. I was like, I don't know how long I'm gonna do this. I don't know if I'm gonna spend the rest of my life doing fantasy football. But I would like to contribute to this space having a little bit more diversity when I leave it than when I
Mhm.
entered it. And so
Absolutely.
to be able to connect with that person, to see you mentioned Jorge, you mentioned Mauricio, who I love.
Mhm.
Mauricio is one of my favorite people. um
Yes, I
to
agree.
have folks like that involved and stuff, it's been wonderful. It's been absolutely amazing, and I'm looking forward to reconnecting with some of these folks in Canton this year and just kind of seeing this thing continue to expand.
Yeah, the fantasy community is really amazing. That's I went for the first time to the expo in 2021, and that's really where I fell in love with like the in-person events. Soon after that, Scott started the live drafts, and I go there, and people always kind of comment it's like a mini expo. It's a little
Mhm.
little bit of that experience, and that's why I really got involved with Bob as much as I have, but hearing it's common, or at least it's becoming kind of common, where this has evolved to be big enough beyond just the main group, and there's the fans and people where they're starting to get exposed to the expo and wanting to come, but now you add in like the anxiety aspect of coming in, of possibly going by yourself because you don't have a friend to bring, and then knowing whether or not someone's going to be there that you're going to connect with, which, I mean, as much as we say like you can absolutely come and talk to anybody, everyone's got shared interests, it's amazing,
Mhm.
there's still some of that anxiety that goes into it. So for this year, we're actually, one of the things that we're going to be putting on, coming in at the DoubleTree, will be some sort of first timer event. So
Mhm.
for those that have gotten their ticket, you'll probably notice that there was a question, is this your first time at the expo? And so we're going to be able to pull that information and invite people in and try and make some connections to, we've talked to Scott Fish about being part of that, and a few other people, so that, hey, we got this group of first timers. We can guarantee that they're going to have a great time because they're going to get to connect with people. And really, credit to Tootsie Pop in the chat. Rachel really kind of brought this to my attention because that was her experience. She came
Mhm.
by herself for the first time, and she ended up connecting with JJ Wenner, and that kind of established that she would have a good time during that year. But we want to make sure everyone gets that opportunity to have a great time.
Oh, for sure. No, absolutely. It's and kudos to folks who do come by themselves because, like,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, I don't know that it's a thing that I could do, and like, not that it's not fun. I just, my anxiety would be up, especially if I didn't know anybody. I wouldn't know who to talk to. But I think part of what's amazing about this is I think because there are so many different types of people involved in this industry, there really is, as they say, there's a lid for every pot, right? There's somebody for everybody to
Mhm.
find and connect with. So I think that part is pretty amazing. I think, especially the parties on Friday and Saturday night where it's just so easy to kind of mingle. And I'll say this, look, if y'all are out there and you see me talking to somebody, especially, look, if I'm talking to, say, like Matt Harmon, just elbow him out of the way. I talk to him all the time. It's fine. Just like, if it's like Harmon, if it's like Andy Behrens, any of those guys, stuff like that, just,
Me,
yeah, just like elbow them out of the way and come say
you know
hello. It's
this
like,
guy. Get out of my way.
yeah, right. It's like, yeah, Behrens, yeah, I get it. You got a loud shirt. Like, yeah, let's move along, sort of thing. So, like, just definitely do not be afraid to come up and at least
Yeah.
say hello. If you want, take a photo, shake hands, whatever. I'm here
Right.
for it.
Right. Well, a lot of people I know over the past few years, but I think it's starting to not be that way anymore. But a lot of people are always like, well, I've been on fantasy football Twitter and there's so many trolls and a-holes and
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with that at the expo. And I'm like, I haven't seen one yet.
Mhm.
And I don't think they would come. So yeah.
I don't think they come, but also the thing I've noticed is that people in real life, a lot of them tend to be different than their online
Oh, sure.
personas as well.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, look, I get it. We all sort of want to portray an image of ourselves, especially, on social media or what have you.
Mhm.
Like, definitely no judgment on my part, but, I have never, I'm really struggling to think of anybody that I've met in real life that I just found to be totally off-putting, like, so yeah, there's no denying there are a lot of trolls, there are a lot of jerks on social media. It just is what it
Mhm.
is. You get those, as I call them, the thumb thugs, right? They stand
Yeah.
there and they just like tweet out whatever they feel like can stir the pot. But, you know, it's like the old thing, right? Like, you wouldn't say that to my face. And generally, people that you meet in real life are a lot more pleasant and a lot more engaging. And so, I mean, if that is people's concern, I would say, you know, I would put that away because I don't find it to be a real issue at the expo.
Yeah, no, and that and it's a lot of the first timers who were like, "Well, I don't know if I want to go because of this," and I'm like, "You're not going to find that here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we do a lot of these videos is not only just to get you on the air to tell everybody about you because everybody knows you, but it's for you to say to people, "Hey, folks, you're not going to run into that." And,
Yeah.
me saying it sounds biased because it's my event, but
Right.
Marcas Grant says it, or Howard Bender, Bob Harris, whoever, then they're like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, those
No,
guys are big deals. I'll
it's
listen to them.
It's absolutely great. No, it's absolutely great. It's a wonderful time. You should absolutely come. Bob, you can Venmo me the $25 after the show.
Yeah,
We'll be
that's
just
fine.
fine.
I'll put in $5 for you.
Awesome.
There you go.
Appreciate
There
you,
you go.
sir.
So, Marcus, any stories like you want to share? I mean, Howard had some good stories. Bob had some good stories. Any stories of things that happened that you're like, huh?
Honestly,
Or
I think
you know,
the quintessential expo moment for me happened last year. Walking out of George's after midnight at some point, and all of a sudden I see Drew Davenport standing on one sidewalk with a wiffle bat in his hands,
Yes.
and Brian Drake in the middle of the street, lined up to pitch. And I took video of it. Look, Drew caught one over the heart of the plate, put one in the gap. It would have been extra bases. That's all I know, right? It was a good looking
yeah,
swing, but like that to me was kind of the quintessential experience of it, right? Because all
right,
of us that like we're there for fantasy football purposes, but we're all just sort of nerds and geeks
Yeah.
in our own
yeah,
special way. And like we just were literally it's the middle of the night, after hours in Canton, Ohio, and what is generally a kind of dark, quiet street, and you got guys playing wiffle ball out there, right? Like that to
yeah,
me, that's a thing that will always stick with me. And like I think that's little things like that. I mean, it's I remember going to the house that Chris Allen and his friends rent out, the Airbnb they rent out, and
mhm,
like walking down to the basement, and it's like Ian Hartitz at one end of a poker table just holding court, like dealing out cards. and like passing out shots of Crown Royal. It's stuff like that. It's just a little after hours things that sort of remind you that, like, yeah, man, we're all just out here to have fun. And I think the thing I've taken away the last couple of years is that the expo, to me, I've started referring to it as like fantasy football Coachella, because that's kind of, I think, the best description that I can come up with. Everybody's just there. Everybody's just there to go out and have a good time, and like, in the interim, we'll talk a little bit of fantasy football during the day, but more than that, you're just meeting people and making friends or reconnecting with friends.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've seen the shirts, but we have a country, a rock show, and we have an Expo shirt on the website that is a music festival. And your name, of course, is on the back, because on the back, the bands
sweet.
So it's got like
That's
the
awesome.
whole schedule, and then where it looks like it's the bands, it's actually all your guys' names, like Marcas Grant, NFL.com, Brad Evans or Bender, even me. I put me on in the smaller. Like I'm one of the, I'm one of the, early bands,
Okay.
warm ups. But I decided to make those because I just thought it would be fun. Yeah, Bob Harris has got the rock show up.
Of course he does.
I just thought it'd be fun because Scott Fitch creates all these fun shirts and everything. I'm like, we got to create a fun shirt. I go, let's make some music festival style shirts, and that's what we came up with. And so they're on the merch site now at the Fantasy Football Expo.
I am scrolling it right now.
There you go.
As we speak.
My favorite is the Expo one.
That's, like, as somebody who once trekked cross country to go to actual Bonnaroo, like, I feel like this is going to be the one I want. Yeah.
So good stuff. So as you're getting ready to come this year, anything new, in your world, NFL? I know you got Laquan Jones there now, so you got him on board. What else is happening at NFL.com, and that you might be bringing in with you this year? I assume Laquan coming? I hope
we're trying to convince him. Now he's saying he may have family, coming to town that week, and I'm like, hey man, why don't I was like, I don't know, like, why don't you just come? Your family's coming from New York. You're going to be in Ohio. Maybe they can just pick you up along the way. Like, come to Canton with us. Have your family come in, stop in Cleveland. They can pick you up. You guys can all go back to LA together.
There you go. Perfect.
I suppose, like, anything new, not really. I mean, I think it's kind of same as it ever was, right? I mean, like last year I finally got Michael F. Florio to come. We had been saying it for a while.
He loved it.
And like, I can tell you with certainty that as soon as we left, right, we all carpooled back to the airport together. We hadn't even gotten on the flight back to LA, and Florio was already, planning ahead for 2025.
Nice.
So he'll be back. We're trying to convince Laquan that family's not really that important, that you can come and drink beers with us.
What about Adam Rank? There's been a lot of talk about him coming.
So Rank is kind of a riddle wrapped inside an enigma. I will warn you in advance that Adam Rank has perfected what we termed the Irish hello. In terms of what Adam Rank will do is he will download photos of, like, the venues that people might be at, right? So he might download a photo of the Hall of Fame, or of the stadium,
the dome.
right? And he'll post them as though he were there. And then what happens is, when you text him, the response you get back will be something to the effect of, hey, I'm on my way. My phone's dying. So just in case you don't hear back from me, just know that my phone is out of battery. Meanwhile, the actual Adam Rank will be, like, chilling on his couch. But we will do our best. We will do our best to see if we can
Adam,
get him
we're looking at you out there, Adam.
Nice.
Looking at you. We want you there.
I'm giving away his secrets, his trade secrets right now.
All right. Yeah. We need the whole NFL group there. We need Adam. We need Laquan. Of course, Marcus will be there. We need the whole
Florio will be back. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Florio will be back. Yeah.
We'll get as many folks as we can get out here, for sure.
Yeah. No, that would be awesome.
So you said you travel in from California. What's your tip for traveling to Canton? Like, is there anything special you do, or time period you book?
Yeah, like I said, I tend to do the red eye out. flying west to east sort of sucks in the sense that you kind of lose the whole day in the air, right? Because you lose the 4 or so hours that you're flying on top of the 3 hours in time difference getting to the Eastern time zone. So that's why I don't really mind taking a flight out at midnight, LA time. And so like, usually I end up, changing like in Chicago. Doing a transfer like at O'Hare or something like that, where I can get a little bit of breakfast, a cup of coffee, something like that to make the short flight to Cleveland from there. And then, like I said, I land in Cleveland. I got the rental car loaded up. The first thing I do is I get the GPS and I just type in Waffle House in Canton. And then I make a beeline. It's like an hour straight through.
Yep.
I was saying this. So it finally took me, I've been doing this for years, right? Since 2018. It finally dawned on me last year, Bob, that like Akron really is kind of the halfway point from Cleveland to Canton. And I think in my mind, I felt like they were next door to each other just because the airport is the Canton Akron or Akron Canton airport. Like I just in my head thinking like, oh yeah, they're like right next to them. Like, no, like I get to Akron, I still have another half hour to go. And so finally like that part finally clicked.
Akron, but yeah.
that part finally clicked to me this past year. But that's it.
So, Marcus, I will tell you, and I want you to take a look into this.
Okay.
So, Breeze Airlines now has a direct flight from Los Angeles to Canton.
Okay.
So, just saying.
I will check that out. So, like I would say, it's part of the reason. One, it's really hard to get a direct flight from LA to like Cleveland, which is why I generally have to change.
Which is weird, yeah, because I thought for sure there was a bunch of them.
There's very few, and they're very hard to come by. And flying into Akron is like it's kind of weirdly expensive. But I'm sitting here.
It can be, but Breeze is pretty decently priced.
Okay.
And I have friends of the family whose kids live out in LA, and they take this trip all the time, and they're like, yeah, it's pretty convenient. It's not badly priced. So, and when you land in Akron, Canton, you're literally 5 minutes or 10 minutes from the Hall of Fame. So,
all right. Yeah. So I'm looking. Oh, yeah. This is a pretty good, pretty good ticket price. Okay. Look at this.
There you go.
Look at this.
And that's why we put that in our recent newsletter of all the flights that do go direct to Akron, Canton. So if you did read your newsletter, make sure you do, because it is listed in there of all the cities. There might be one closer to you than you think. So check it out. I know everybody's like, oh, Cleveland, because it's cheaper. Well, yeah, but if you don't have to rent or get an Uber, which is $100 like one way, rent a car, all that stuff, it might be cheaper in the long run. So.
Look at this, man! Like Expo news and travel tips. Like this is like a one-stop shop.
So now next year, Marcus will be saying on this show, travel tip: take Breeze from Los Angeles.
Dude, seriously, I'll wear a T-shirt that says "Fly Breeze" on it. Like if they want to hook me up.
There you go.
Like we'll get you
sponsored.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally down for that. Totally down for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned one of the Georges where you go to for the evening. Do you go to Samantha's in the morning for breakfast?
I have been to Samantha's at once upon a time. It's funny because like now, because we do the King's Classic, like we kind of get going at like 9 o'clock usually. Because usually I'm enjoying the Friday night party. I wake up just enough time to maybe grab a cup of coffee and a muffin or something like that and get over to the draft. So, but I can vouch for Samantha's. I have been there. I had an excellent breakfast at Samantha's. So I can definitely give the place 2 thumbs up.
Well, that's too bad because it just closed this past week.
The downtown location closed.
The downtown location. There are other Samantha locations, but the important one, it was sad. But I'm looking into other downtown, and we found a new breakfast place downtown.
Okay.
So we're going to put in our next newsletter, we're going to list any other ones that are down there that you can walk to. That was crushing news because we have 5 other locations that are open here for Samantha's in town. But that was the one that closed, and I was like, could you wait until like end of August?
So, but I do love downtown Canton, right? I mean, it's very, it's very compact. It's easy to get to, but there's a lot of great stuff kind of happening down there. I mean, where we have the party on Fridays every night. You have you have jerseys. You have so many different things around there. I mean, George's is not really. It's a short walk from there, but there's so many cool little places in downtown Canton. It's a pretty cool spot.
Yeah, no, it keeps getting better, but it's slow to get better because outside of Hall of Fame weekend and
And the
Expo
Expo.
weekend,
Right.
there isn't a lot to do in downtown Canton. They try. Centennial Plaza, they try to do a lot of things there to get people there. They have a thing called First Fridays where they have, open up the town and everybody walks around with their, drinks or whatever. And that's always cool. But yeah, it's still a tough place to get things, but they're trying to get new hotels built down there and get things ramped up. So,
But even to see the way the Hall of Fame Village has grown, like back in 2018, it was just the Hall of Fame and the stadium, and like to see what there is now, it's been pretty impressive the way the village has grown over the last few years.
It really saved us because without that dome, I don't know where we would hold the actual expo in. So, there's little Grant.
Yeah, hey, Quentin, can you say hi?
Hey, Quentin.
Yep.
What's up, buddy?
This is my buddy, my little buddy, my son Quentin. Just he's on spring break, and so now he wants to come in.
So when is he coming to the expo?
You know what? I when his mother will allow it, which is not going to be any time.
There you go. Okay.
So,
Hey, in a couple of years to get that water park done, and mom could come along and go to the water park. There we go. Oh, we don't hear you. Nope.
Oh. Maybe he's got the same issue. I got this little button to get turned off.
No. Nope. Now he's frozen. No, he's not frozen. Is there a button on the bottom? On and off button, maybe? Or a mute button? Nope. Now he froze. Okay. There it is. No?
Oh, wait, am I back now?
You were back.
You go. Now we hear you.
All right, there we are. It was all falling apart there at the end, but we saved it.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah. Well, I also mentioned that Samantha's being over at Belden Village area because you've got the what is it? The Holiday Inn that we're also utilizing for one of the Expo hotels and it's right across the street from Jersey's and M Bar. The last couple minutes here, Bob, tell everyone about the change to the Saturday night party.
Yeah, so real quick, Saturday night party has moved from the stadium to Jersey's and the M Bar. We're going to take over both locations. We're going to have indoor and outdoors areas with food, drinks, all that kind of stuff, bands, maybe a band, a DJ, but it's going to allow us to all be in one spot. We can go inside or out depending on the weather, but it should give us still the ability to stay close. And most importantly, much cheaper drinks, much cheaper food, and much better selection because the stadium just didn't work out when you wanted, if you wanted anything more than two different beers or something other than a cold hot dog or hamburger. And so we worked out a deal, and it's the same guy that owns Jersey's downtown. So he's very happy to help us out. And so he's opening up the whole place. In fact, the week before is Hall of Fame weekend. They have a bunch of tents that they have set up for the Hall of Famers when they have their parties there. And they're going to leave all that up for us.
Oh, cool.
So we're going to have the same setup as the Hall of Famers when they come into town. So should be a good time.
Very, very cool. Looking forward to it. It's always a fun time. Yeah. It's to the point now that my wife basically just knows there's a weekend in August where I'm just not going to be here. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah. All good,
well, thanks for being a part of this. We really appreciate you, Marcus. We look forward to your fan favorite coming by June 1st. Yep. And as always, we're excited to have you be a part of this. We'll see you come August.
Sounds good, guys. I appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to seeing you guys in a couple months.
Yep.
Awesome.
Will do.
All right. Well, we've got this fancy new end screen that I'm going to click on and see everyone in a couple weeks. And who do we got next, Bob?
Dave Richard.
Dave Richard.
CBS Sports.
Good old Dave.
2 weeks.
Yep. April 29th. So, all right. See you.
All right. See you guys. Thanks, Marcus. Take care.
Awesome. Cool.
Thanks for watching. Lock in your 2025 football tickets now at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. Hit subscribe and check out one of these excellent at FF Expo videos next.